So we are talking about uh, the beings or creatures, incarnations, whatever you want to call them, and the word is nephilim, right? So let's clear first the terms of nephilim and the term that we call the sons of Elohim. Those are the two terms that we're going to need to understand how this story in the Torah that is big in the Torah. Torah is the first five of the books of the Torah or the Bible. We call them is Torah. We call Torah everything because the word itself is instruction. But truly, if we're going to be technical, the first five books of Moses is what truly is Torah. Everything else speaks about Torah, tries to explain it, tries to give us examples by living, by instruction. But Torah is the first five books. And in these five books, we're going to find these beings called the Nephilims, the giants, these angels who came from heaven and mixed with the daughters of men. You're going to find them a lot. It's not like just chapter 6 of Genesis. We started there because the reason that I wanted to start it there is because there it says that the mixing of these two lines, the daughters of men and the sons of Elohim, they mix with each other, and then they got these children called the Nephilims. And there were giants, it says, in that time and after. And when it says after, it's after the Mabul, after the flood. So there is before and there is after. So we want to see that if that's the case, where are they and why are they so important in Torah? Because Torah is about instruction, right? It's about how we're supposed to live, how we're supposed to act, and how we're supposed to think. At least how do we renew our minds. And so why is this story is there? So that's what we're trying to do. So let's see if we learned something from last week. What is the term Elohim means? A son of Elohim means. Sons of Elohim. Do you remember? What was the term? No? Okay, so we'll find some verses today to define that. What does the word Nephilim means? Cast out? Yeah. Falling ones. So the confusing part is going to be that there is falling ones when it comes to your own spirit. You could be a falling one. That means you're not measuring to the standard of your spirit. So you can be called also a Nephilim. That's one way of looking at it. The other way to look at it, there is a being, there is this creature that is called also a Nephil or a Nephilim. In another civilizations, we call them the Anunnaki, sons of Anu, right? Which is a god that we are going to talk about later on. So I wanted to make sure that the class is practical. You know, that it's just not history and kind of like a story, like wow. But how does it relate to me now and to my society and in the world that we live in? So one of the things that we are going to find out about this line of beings on earth is that they change the way technology is. And I'm going to show you with Torah how they changed the DNA, right, of fruits, vegetables, and they changed the way we eat. So a long time ago, I had we used to get fruits from Sam's Club, or one of those, right? And then we used to also get fruit from farmers markets, right? So I don't eat fruit, so I didn't pay attention too much to these things. But I remember that we bought some apples from Sam's, and they were beautiful. They were bright and red and almost like, like perfect. And so they will put them in a bowl, in our dining table. And so every time that I used to pass there, I would look at it. And nobody really ate the apples. And first week passed, they looked the same. Second week passed, they looked the same. I was like, wow, these apples are, they're truly real. Anyway, one day we left apples that we had bought in the farmer's market and apples that we had bought in Sam's and the garage. And in that time, we had problems with mice. I don't want to talk about it too much about that, but they were there. And so they ate the farmer's market apples and did not eat the apples from Sam's Club. Because the apples of Sam's Club, and these are also generically has pork in it. Cells of pork to make the apple not get rotten quickly. Yeah. So I'm going to talk to you about that this nephilim had a way to produce massive food in the desert. In today's day, you will see that a lot of our foods are processed, most of them are, and the technologies about our DNA, genetic DNA. I'm going to talk about that in this class because you need to know, because we're having issues with everything, right? And it's really hitting home close now, with the diseases and the problems we're having. Second is monuments, right? Our technologies, we can make big now buildings that before we couldn't even think about because of architecture and the technology of it, right? Well, I'm going to show you that the Nephilims also did that in a more precise way than we still cannot do. So I'm going to start with there. So there is a verse in Isaiah that says, Yahweh talking, and it says, Yahweh says, I have a building, I have a monument in the, ¿cómo se dice? Border. In the borders, thank you. In the borders of Egypt. That is what Yahweh says. So he said, what? God has a monument in the borders of Egypt? That's what Isaiah says. So when you go to Egypt, there is a pyramid. The name of the pyramid is Giza. And Giza in Egyptian language means border. And it's because it's in the border between the south of Egypt and the north of Egypt. It's in the border. And that's what it's called, the pyramid of Giza. Right? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that pyramid. I want you to think about, they said it was built maybe about 4,500 years ago, but most people, they don't get, funded by the government, and you just look at it, it has about 10,000 years, which makes no sense because 10,000 years ago, there shouldn't be nobody here with that capacity to do this, even 5,000 years ago. But here we go. So I'm going to give you some ideas. Ready? Number one, the base of the Great Pyramid covers about 13 acres. 13 acres. I don't know if you understand that, but that's a pretty big monument. It consists approximately 2.3 million blocks of stone, weighing around 2.5 tons each. Some of them weigh up to 50 tons, and very few ones of granite blocks weigh up to 100 tons. So somebody told me this morning that about 100 tons is about so it's double, about 200 elephants, well fed. That's a lot. Okay. Another thing you want to know is taking the Hebrew cubit when it comes to measurements is about 25.025 inches, about 63.5 centimeters. The length of each side of the base is 365.2422 cubits is the exact number in the days of the solar year, including an extra day for every 4 years. So whoever built it with these measurements about time and about space. Look at this one. This was kind of incredible. Let me see here. I'll tell you another one. The slope of the size of the pyramid is such an angle that they meet at the apex at the predetermined height of 232.52 cubits. If twice the length in the side of the base was to be divided by the height of the pyramid, will arrive to 3.14159, which is pi. And there is no monument that we have done with these craziness numbers. We haven't. But somebody did, even if it's only 5,000 years ago. Even 200 years ago. We will have a hard time trying to understand this. But I continue. This is my favorite one, because it makes no sense to me, but here it goes. The angle of the slope of the size is 10 to 9. That is, for every 10 feet you ascend, you rise the altitude by 9 feet as you go up. This is the measurements. And if you multiply the altitude of the pyramid by 10, raised to the power of 9, you have 91,840,000, which is in miles, is exact distance of the sun from the earth. So the pyramid tells you exactly that distance between the sun and the earth. Why do they need to know that? Or why did they did that? We have no idea. Right? And you have a problem with algebra. I don't know. So, and I can tell you that through the pyramid you can know the average of the level of the sea throughout the earth. The average, because you know the level of the sea and the earth, some go down and some so up, but the pyramid gives you the average, like they measure it that way. And even though that's unbelievable, my question always been, why? Why did they do that? Or why is that pyramid there? But it has to do, and the Torah is going to teach us who built it, who were the builders of this pyramid, okay? Because we're talking about that. Okay. If you get inside the pyramid, right? The pyramid they have blocked it intentionally, so you cannot go to one side of the pyramid. So when they got in now, nobody knows what is in the other side, and nobody wants to open it. Somebody closed it for some reason, like they didn't want something to come out. That seems to be the idea. They closed it. But really, the pyramid also is like an observatory. Inside, it has some kind of holes that you can see specific stars. For example, Sirius on the south, Orion, and on the north, the Ursa Minor, and one is very important to the Hebrews, the Alpha Draconis. Somebody knows about that constellation? In the book of Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation, there is this constellation called Draco in Hebrew, which says that the worshippers of the dragon came from that place. Of the dragon. Yeah, there was some people that came from that stars, or some beings who are worshippers of the dragon. So much that it sounds like China. The Draconians is called. So look at it. Go and research the constellation of Draco. Very important for the Hebrews. So much that in the book of Sefer Yetzirah, there is a sequence of letters to meditate to go there. So, all right. So I'm going to tell you something else, though. So we are using the Torah, right, as our point of reference. But Torah itself has some kind of interesting things. Torah is a beautiful book if you really get away from your ideas of control, because our parents and our religion kind of controls us with the Bible to help us, to protect us maybe, but at the end of the day, instead of helping us, we start hating the Torah because it kind of controls us. But that's not what the Torah was meant for. For example, if I take the first 2 books of the Bible, what are the 2 books of the Torah? What are they? So if I take Genesis and Exodus, right? Bereshit and Shemot. If I take those 2, and every 49 letters, I take it out. 49 letters, I take another letter. I get the word Torah, 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 throughout the first 2 books. If I take the last 2 books, which are what? Numbers and Devarim, right? If I take those 2, it gives me Torah again. I take them after 49 letters, I take it out, I take it out. It gives me Torah, but backwards. Because it's pointing, one is pointing this way, and one is pointing this way, right? And so in the book of Leviticus, which is the middle one, every 49 letters, the name of Yahweh comes out. So what is the purpose of Torah? For you to be introduced to Yahweh. Yahweh is a seed. Yahweh is what is going to make you. See, that's what we are called sons of the Elohim, because that's the seed, that's the spirit that is going to create you. It is the name of Yahweh. It's a code. And if you understand generics, that's the 4 amino acids that builds who you are. You are who you are physically and every aspect because of your genes. One gene different, maybe you will have 2 horns, I don't know. Or you will have blue eyes or green eyes or no eyes. And it's built in a sequence of 4 amino acids, 4 of them, which is the name of Yahweh. So if you don't believe, so spiritually, hopefully scientifically you understand it, that you are built out of this. Okay. So I'm going to tell you something else about Torah. So if I take the book of Matthew and I see the genealogy of Yeshua, right? I'm going to tell you what happens to that genealogy. So, you read it, and then Abraham, begot Isaac, and Isaac Jacob, and you're like, oh yeah. And you're reading all those names. Let me tell you about those names, how codified it is. Ready? So when I take the genealogy of Yeshua, I can do something mathematically with it. Here it goes. The number of words in this genealogy must be evenly divisible by 7 with no remainers. So the words, every word that comes in the genealogy, if I take them all together and I divide it by 7, it gives me exactly 7. It did not, the division, you can divide it by 7. Also, the number of letters must be divisible by 7. So not only the words, now I go letter by letter. And I take all the letters of that genealogy, I can divide it by 7. If I take the vowels, and the consonants must be divisible by 7s. The number of words that begin with a vowel must be divisible by 7. The number of words that begin with a consonant must be divisible by 7. The number of words that occur more than once must be divisible by 7. The number of words that occur in more than one form must be divisible by 7. The number of words that occur only in one form must be divisible by 7. The number of names in the genealogy must be divisible by 7. The number of males' names must be divisible by 7. The number of generations in the genealogy must be divisible by 7. And they all do. So you tell me that when Matthew wrote it, he was thinking mathematically, what was he doing? He couldn't create more or take less. He took the genealogy of the Bible and put it, and everything was divisible by 7. That is your Bible. Yeah, that's why maybe Isaac Newton said, right? if I would have just studied more Bible, I would have learned more about physics. Einstein says, wow, if I would know more about it, if I only knew a thought of God, I would have left all my wisdom to go to waste. So this is what we are privileged. And this is why people that really understand the Torah are very successful people. They can really get anywhere because it's beyond our wisdom. Okay? So I wanted to tell you that because what I'm going to tell you now is going to sound like a fairy tale, but that's in Torah. With these giants and these angels and these monuments and all this craziness that is still today, at least by Torah, that's still among us. Okay? So here we go. Ready. So we're going to read again. Let's read chapter 6, verse 1 to 4. Who's going to read it? Yeah.
Genesis chapter 6, 1 to 4.
Uh-huh.
So it says, when men began to multiply on the surface of the ground, and daughters were born to them, Yahweh's sons saw that the men's daughters were beautiful, and they took any that they wanted for themselves as wives. Yahweh said, my spirit will not strive with this man forever, because he is also flesh. So his days will be 120 years. The nephilim were in the earth in those days, and also after that, when Yahweh's sons came into men's daughters and had children with them. Those were the mighty men of old, men of renown.
So last week we said the mighty, what it means in Torah, in Hebrew, mighty, what does it mean? Violent. We're warriors. Okay? So let's see who the sons of Elohim are. We're going to go to the book of Job, verse 38, verse 4 to 7. This is a term. So that we understand that what happened in chapter 6 is kind of a mix of different beings, human beings and some kind of spiritual divinity beings, divine beings. So what does it say? Job 38, 4 to 7.
Job 38, 4 to 7.
Yes.
Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if you have understanding. Who determined its measures, if you know? Or who stretched the line upon it? Whereupon were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of Yahweh shouted for joy.
So the sons of Yahweh were in different creation because the world wasn't made yet, and they were already singing and praising from the stars, right? So the idea is this what we call aliens, or this is these UFOs, or what is going on, and we're going to give statistics about UFOs and about adoptions and all that. But I just want to lay down the foundation of this idea in the Torah first. So I'm going to go now. Let's go to Job 1:6.
Now on the day when Yahweh's sons came to present themselves before Yahweh, Satan also came among them.
Okay, so what is the verse saying? You guys are awesome today.
I'll read it.
Yeah, maybe they didn't hear it.
Now on the day when Yahweh's sons came to present themselves before Yahweh, Satan also came among them.
So what is the text saying?
That Satan is Yahweh's son. Or
So maybe Satan is also a son of Yahweh. Huh? Is it probably? Yeah, we all related. Yes, actually we are. That'll be later on in the class. Yes, yes. Yes, but right now, what is the verse saying? Read it again. Maybe you guys don't know. What is this? What is it saying?
So it's saying that there was a day when Yahweh's sons came to present themselves,
They always present themselves every day.
and then Satan was empty.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
That's a bonus in the verse. But the sons of Elohim will come every day to present themselves. So they were not humans. There was in chapter 6. That's what I'm trying to say. The term sons of Elohim always come out as angels. That's what I'm trying to make sure that you understand. There is a mix between these two different type of beings.
I might be reading into this too much, but does it have anything to do with the Sephiroth? Because when we say the mother and the father, we think of like the right and the left side, and then when we say son, usually it's like the middle of the right. But does it have anything to do with that, or is that separate?
It's separate. Yeah. I know what you're going, but no. This is just, it's important to read the Bible as the simplistic way possible. First, because the Peshat, right, is the hardest one because we have a different understanding. We try to complicate things in our lives. Now, when we read something, we always try to find the intent of what we read. That's why texting sometimes can get really crazy. Words you're trying to argue because you don't know the tone, you don't know anything, and you're always trying to read something behind it. And even though that could be also important in some areas of text, of the text, and even in a text, sometimes you can see the imply. In Torah, is one of the rules is you must stay true to the text. Just read it like it is and try to figure it out like that. And then when it's impossible, or you get to the limit of it, then you move up, and move up, and move up, to a point that you might want to get into just powers and the soul. Yeah, but in this case, it's pretty historical. There was a flood. There was an Adam, and even in a sense of the line of the specific civilizations, to say the least. Does that make sense? That? Okay. All right. So now we're going to look at something. So Torah says that these giants lived before the flood. And we'll find out what they truly did and why there was a flood. Because it was not only what we think. When we think about the Yahweh destroy the old world through water, is because they were doing something evil. Have you wondered what they were doing? That a flood had to come and just wipe them out? Have you thought about that? Like, I wonder what kind of sin they did. Because we have practiced since then, seems all the sins possible. If not, we created other ones, and we're still around. Don't you think? Or just me thinking craziness?
I read something about, you were talking about the modified food and everything, the DNA,
Uh-huh.
equivalent to these days, due to space-time, so to speak, in the sense that our technology is very, very developed. Now, we can create a baby, not create a baby, but we can, without having like sexual intercourse,
Uh-huh.
we can, donate our sperm to another, and then we go from there. But also I read in one of the books, in the Kabbalistic books, I don't know if it's true or not, but the giants were, because in Hebrew there are two different ways to identify the nephilim, right? Which is like Elohim, the book, or the nephilim, the sons of Elohim, which are the angels, angels.
Uh-huh.
But I read that's one of the things they were doing. They were manipulating the land,
Yes.
the food,
Yes, yes.
And they were wasting their seed, meaning that their sperm.
Uh-huh.
And then Hashem, Yahweh had to clean the land or the earth because one of the commandments says that when you have this intercourse with your wife, you have to take a shower. You have to clean that and wait till the sunset or twilight. The twilight will be
Yes, yes.
purified, right?
Yeah.
So the intention of the intention of having the flood is to clean or purify the land.
Yes. Yeah, that's we call it a remes, which is like a shadow of what is supposed to be. Right? They're trying to use the examples, earthly examples for spiritual examples or realities. Yeah. But, okay. But if we have sin in that case, right, why is it that we're not being destroyed?
Well, it does say that you never flood the earth.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because he says he's not going to destroy the earth again with water. But later on, there is also a shower of fire. So I don't know what's better or what's worse. Because that's what he says. Right? So I think we're going from element to element in this case. But it's a good question, is what truly were they doing? Yeshua says something interesting. He says, like the days of Noah will be the second coming. That's what he says. I'm going to come, and it's going to be the end of this era when we go back to the time of Noah. But in the time of Noah, they were just marrying each other. That's what he says. This is why. The issue is this marriage. But he doesn't explain what that meant, or he thought that whoever was listening knew what he was saying, but we didn't. And this is why there's like a gap of knowledge. So I want you just to think, I wonder what that marriage was, what that combination, is it happening again?
So do you think it has something to do with like the sons of God and the daughters of God?
So the idea is that they're coming and they started mixing with us again. And how do we know that? Because of the technology that we have again. We didn't have this technology. You guys are young, and you think that all the time this, whatever you have now, was here. Well, not all of you guys are that young, but, the majority of you, maybe two of you, we're not going to say names, but three with me, we are from a better era, right? The best generation there was. But what I'm saying is, we know about the brain now so much in the last 40 years. Before that, in the dark. None. Zero. Nada. And then 40 years later, we seem to be the masters of the brain now. We get it. We understand something. Right? Technology has moved so fast. Maybe something's happening. I'm telling you, this is what Torah kind of is, the intent is you need to be ready of what is happening. That's why it's nice to be out of your technology and to have a Shabbat of it. It's hard because we all use it, we all needed it. We are kind of trapped by it. And our brains have changed because of the way we use technology. Most of us don't remember 20 phone numbers anymore. In our time, I knew all the numbers of everybody. Everybody that I needed, easy. I still remember it. The numbers are useless, but I still know them. But I don't know numbers that are very specific people because I have it in my smartphone that makes me dumb to me, but it makes smart to them. Right? And then this is what happens. So let's see what we can after the flood. Then they're still here. And I'll give you some ideas of that. But let's see if we can do it fast. Let's see. We're going to go Genesis chapter 14, verse 5. This is our names that make no sense to us because we read this and we say, why is this in the Bible? We should have put a better story, but this is what it says. But I want you to just pay attention to these names. And I'll tell you the translations of the names. Yes.
Shaveh, Kiriathaim.
That's it. You know, when I just read that, it's like, seems like a waste of space. It could have put another story of Abraham or something to give us. But this is what he says. In another Hebrew text, another translation, it says, and the kings that were with him killed and took to pieces the giants. The word, so I'm going to give you why. The word Rephaims comes from a word called Rapha, which was the father of these Rephaims. Right? Rapha in Hebrew means fearful one or giant. The other one that we're going to see is called the Anakims, which in this verse are going to be called Emims, this type of beings. So let's talk about who are they. So we're going to go to the book of Devarim, chapter 2, verse 8, 10, and 11. And again, these names are going to come out. Okay? But we know the Rephaims were the giants. And we know by the book of the giants in the caves of Qumran, in the cave of Qumran, there's a book called the Book of Giants. And they say the Rephaims were really like giants, but they were like dead, like zombies. They're like a zombie. In a weird way is that you will cut their arm and they'll grow another one. That's what it says in the text. So they were feared because you had to really behead them. That's why I think King David, when saw Goliath and he brought him down, the first thing he did was cut his head. Because they had this idea that some of them, grew their limbs again. This is in the text, all right? So maybe Spider-Man and his friends were not that far away here. All right. So let's see what it says. What it says that, Miko? Chapter 2, verse 8, 10, and 11. 2, 8, 10, and 11.
So we passed by from our brothers, the children of Esau, who dwell in Seir, from the way of the Arabah, from Elath, and from Ezion-Geber. We turned and passed by the way of the wilderness of Moab. And then 10 and 11. The Emim lived therein before, a people great and many and tall as the Anakim. These also are considered to be Rephaim as the Anakim, but the Moabites call them Emim.
So there were all these giants. These giants, when Israel is going to come out in the desert, this is their enemies, these giants. The word Emim means terrible ones. Anakims were descended from a guy called Anak, that is translated as a long-necked giant. So this is a way they describe them. Anak was the son of Arba. Arba, which in Hebrew means the strength of Baal. So Baal is a god, very powerful god for the what do they call? Where is the Israel's land before them? The Canaanites, the Canaanites. Okay, so this is the sons. So now we're gonna do. This is gonna be. We're gonna finish with this, okay? Because we're just laying down right now the idea that these giants existed, and we're gonna see some of their battles. So we're gonna go to the book of Numbers. We're going to read chapter 13, 17 to 33. Okay, so let's just listen to the story. It's a great story about giants in Israel. Okay, they were fighting them.
17 to 33.
Yes.
Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan.
Okay, so this is the story. After 15 days, 17 days, they're trying to get into the land of Canaan, which is what Yahweh promised them to be. So Moses says to them, I think we need to look at the land and figure out who are living there, because we're going to have to go and fight them. Let me tell you something about Israel, though, in that time. They hadn't lost a battle since they got out of Egypt. They were like 40-0, right? They were like the Real Madrid of that moment. They were the best of the best. Everybody feared them. I mean, everybody feared Israel in that time because there was an angel with them. And they were just wiping out the whole tribes in the desert. So they called the prince of the desert. That's what they were called. So now they're here. Moses says, just go look. Because, when it's time, we're going to go and fight them. They haven't lost. Right? So these people, they're warriors. It's not, they're not people that don't know how to fight. And listen what happens, okay? So I want you to listen to the story. So here we go now.
Moses sent them to spy on the land of Canaan and said to them, go up this way by the south and go up into the hill country. See the land, what it is, and the people who dwell there, whether they are strong or weak, whether there are few or many, and what the land is that they dwell in, whether it is good or bad, and what cities they are that dwell in, whether in camps or in strongholds, and what the land is, whether it is fat or lean, whether there is wood there or not. Be courageous and bring some of the fruit of the land.
Why do you think he wanted to know about the fruit? Right?
Their crops would show what they were,
How do they produce it? Moses knew about something about production. He wanted to know what kind of production, what kind of food they had. That weird? Because you don't think that he will bring that as, but bring some fruit. Imagine that. He has some spies, right, to Russia. What do you need to bring? Some fruits from them. Let's see what happens. But this is because he's looking at something. So listen what happens.
Now the time was the time for the first ripe grapes. So they went up and
Okay, so I'm sorry, but that's the key. Why do you think that Torah is saying that it was time for grapes? Why, Mama?
the season, I don't know.
Yes. What kind of season is it? Yes, but what season is it for Israel? Sukkot. So this is why we read, that's why we teach this in this time, all this, because we're teaching in the time of the Sukkot. So after Sukkot, what do you think happens? The moon of Scorpio comes, and now you are with the giants again. So you came out of a party, yeah, we're fine, yeah, we're the best, we passed Yom Kippur and everything, and then you step out, and now you are in front of Canaan again, and you have to confront your giants. That's a more spiritual way of looking at it, but this is where they are. This is where they are in Sukkot. Not weird, huh? It's in Sukkot that they need to start preparing and looking at the giants. See what happens then.
so they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin to Rehob, to the entrance of Hamath. They went up by the south and came to Hebron, and Ahiman, Shai, and Talmai, the children of Anak, were there.
Oh, look at the giants. The children of Anak are there. They're the biggest ones. So they will measure up to 350 feet. So think about Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal is 7 feet high, right? It's tall. So divide 350 in 7. What is that? So it's about 51 Shaquille O'Neals put together. And that will be a giant of that type. There were smaller ones, like 40, 50 feet. But these guys were the big boys. Right? So they go in there and they go, oh my God, out of every giant that could be there, these guys are here. And listen what he says though. This is our spies. It's not, they're 007s. They have equipment. They have style. And they're freaking out. Okay, so you see what happens. Maybe I'm the only one who likes this stuff, not you guys, but I think this is great.
So it said the children of Anak were there.
Uh-huh.
Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt.
So Zoan is where the father of the Anak, built a city in Egypt. Maybe this is the guys who built the monuments. All right, continue.
They came to the valley of Eshcol and cut down from there a branch with one cluster of grapes.
Uh-huh.
And they bore it on a staff between two. They also brought some of the pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster which the children of Israel cut down from there.
It takes two people to bring it, right? So but they were pretty big. Okay. Remember, the Israel were not Guatemala. They were not short. They were big guys too. We're talking about Israel was huge. They were big boys. They were slaves. They were strong people, but it took two. All right.
They returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days. They went and came to Moses, to Aaron, and to all the congregation of the children of Israel, to the wilderness of Paran, to Kadesh, and brought back word to them and to the whole congregation. They showed them the fruit of the land. They told him and said, we came to the land where you sent us. Surely it flows with milk and honey.
Okay.
This is its fruit.
So he says, you know what? They can produce there. What is interesting is that after they beat these giants and beat them, Israel always was hungry. They had a hard time with food. It's the desert. They depend on the rain. You have no idea. I mean, they truly depend on the rain. And sometimes the desert, won't give you rain. And there was times in Israel there was starvation. I mean, there's a point that they were eating their own children. So they never saw this flowing of milk and honey. But when they got there, they were manufacturing food. There was enough food. Of course, they were giants. They need to have food, right? So a lot of us that we are being kind of slaved in many ways is the way we are fed. That's why it's funny, I know this happened to you, maybe not, but for example, if I go to part of my family before, and I would say, oh, I don't eat pork, instead of saying, that's good for you, what would they say? Why? Are they crazy? You think you're better? Or whatever, instead of saying, I'm good for you, that you are eating better. Food is a very way to really rules us. And that goes to drinks and everything. And it happens to us. I've been doing a colon cleanser because after Sukkot I ate so much meat that I thought that it was a good idea. And I decided that because I'm doing the meat, I do also the soda. Right? So I said, I'm going to do the soda. But the meat has been hard. The soda has been terrible. It's like I can shake it. I shake all the time because I want a Diet Coke. And I see how enslaved I am from this drink. I can restrict myself from many things, even sleep, to study. I have no issues. It's hard, but I can do it. But when it comes to food or comes to drinks, I have a hard time. That's what these giants were doing. So imagine if they had the food, they control the world. And believe it or not, go see who controls the United States in foods. 7 families. Only 7. And the government says right now, you know what the government is doing right now? He said we have too much food. Let's burn it. Let's burn the food. But what will pay you to burn it? But we are into our own. This is our world here. Beautiful things, and we are being. Yeah. This is why food stamps came. Food stamps. Food stamps is to help the farmers to destroy their crops, and they get food stamps so they can eat. And it became part of the, welfare and all that stuff. But it was really for the farmers. So like, the food like Tyson, you see those Tysons, many, but 7 of them. And these 7 families are very wealthy and very, very powerful. More than half of our lettuce goes just to McDonald's. We had to import from other countries because we don't have enough for McDonald's. You know right now what's happening with the shipments and the you'll see it by Christmas. So you're gonna get a toy, please get it now. I'm telling you, you're gonna see some shortage. You can see it in the stores.
I mean, Biden even went and talked about it like the other day.
Yeah.
He said they now opened the Long Beach and the Los Angeles port 24/7.
24/7. But this is so think about it. In that time, whoever controlled the food controlled the world, and these giants had a way to do this. And I'm going to show you how. But this is what this class is about. It gets a little boring because we need to read the text. But I'm sorry, without the text, I can teach you. Does it make sense? So let's finish here because we have to go. So these are the good news. The only good news these spies gave. Yeah, there is food and whatever. And then
However, the people who dwell in the land are
strong.
and the cities are fortified and very large.
Yeah.
Moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. Amalek dwells in the land of the south. The Hittites, the Jebusite, and the Amorite dwell in the hill country. The Canaanite dwells by the sea, along the side of the Jordan. Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are able to overcome them."
So the only one, Caleb and Joshua, says, you know what? Right now, if we go in, they don't know that we're here. Let's do it, right? Because this is how David did it. David looked at Goliath and says, "I'm just gonna go, and then I'm gonna confront him." That's the only way you can do this. You have to confront all this stuff, but we hide it in our minds. It doesn't exist. We're like, "Oh no, that's just," and we continue. That's what these 10 spies wanted to do. But listen, this is the part I want you to listen to. Okay.
But the men who went up with him said, "We aren't able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are." They brought up an evil report of the land, which they had spied out to the children of Israel, saying, "The land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that eats up its inhabitants, and all the people who we saw in it are men of great stature. There we saw the nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the nephilim.
Uh-huh.
We were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight."
So what he's saying is, they were so tall that we perceive ourselves as insects. But doesn't stay there. He says, but they also saw us as insects. So it's not only how we look to them, but also how they look to us, which is true perception. Because I have perception how Sean sees me is one way, how I perceive Sean or Sean perceives me. If I know both, I have true reality. So they really were very small. Well, if they were 300, you look very small, right? So at least until now, we can say that there were giants before the flood, and we're starting to see in the story of Israel trying to conquer their land that these giants appear. We're going to go up to the year 1300 and we're still going to see them. So for next week. All right? All right. Thank you very much. Yay.